Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for listening to our content, and please like and subscribe. Before we get to the podcast, if you have middle school or high school kids that play sports and you don't want to fundraise like me, we got you covered. My buddy Chris Carneal owns Booster. Chris?
We help schools and sports teams raise funds in a super fun and engaging way. In fact, the last 22 years, we've raised $750 million, and we can't wait to help you. Choose booster.com.
Welcome back to Pure Athlete. I'm Jeff, along with Britt and Brad. And guys, today we're going to have a fun little episode with the three of us talking about parenting on game day, which should be a lot of fun. We're going to go through different topics, and obviously it's for the most part easy to parent when you have practice. Just drop them off and sit there. But game day, you can be a little more anxious, a little more pressure getting them there on time, different things. So we're going to have fun with that in a little bit. But before we get to that, if you haven't heard, we are doing our second live event with the new Falcons quarterback, Kirk Cousins, on May 20th at North Point Church from 6:30 to 8:15. And I'm excited about that. You know, we had Matt Olson, a baseball guy. Now we've got the newest Falcons quarterback.
Well, and, you know, people know a little bit about Kirk from being on QB1 on Netflix, but even in QB1, he didn't talk a lot about what happened growing up in his youth sports story. And there's a lot of cool stuff there, and we're going to dig into that, but we're going to take that all the way through college and his pro career, and even talk a little bit of Falcons football.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, great role model. It's going to be exciting to find out just kind of how he got to where he is now.
Yeah, so you can go on pureathleteinc.com, buy tickets to that. They are going fast.
Yes, they are.
It's going to be a limited amount of space, obviously. And, you know, the one with Matt Olson was, I thought, so great. We got so much good feedback just doing it live. So I think it's going to be cool. Our plan is to continue to do these, even maybe get to some other cities, other states to do it. But this one will be Kirk Cousins. It'll be a lot of fun doing that. Just got done with the Masters, Scotty Scheffler.
Man, he's unbelievable.
And then he went on to the Heritage and dominated that one too. I mean, it's...
Yeah, they said he took like, 30 minutes of practice time, went home, saw his wife, and hit the ball in his backyard a little bit, came in and won another tournament.
And it's unbelievable. Him there, Nelly Corda on the LPGA, she's dominated too. So it's been an interesting ride lately in golf. It's been two people winning.
Man, it's good for the game, though. It's good for. I mean, I think it kind of felt like it was kind of a lull post Tiger a little bit, and I think and a lot of personalities and their Netflix thing that they do, Full Swing, is a great promotion for golf. And you learn more about him, and hopefully we'll get him on the show. Pretty soon.
Is Netflix paying you? Can you give me a little plug?
It's a little side hustle I got going on there. I got a little stand-up show coming up soon. I'll promote it when the time is right.
And Scotty's easy to like.
Oh gosh, how can you not?
What has he won 4 tournaments in a row now? I think it's 4.
Yeah, is it 4 or is it 4 out of 5?
Is it 4 out of 5? Okay.
Yeah, I think he finished like 4th.
Correct me again.
His last 2 years or 3 years have been amazing. I mean, amazing.
And he's
historical.
Yeah, and just the way he's dominating. You got the hockey playoffs and basketball playoffs starting, which have been great. Baseball's in full swing now, so I was in Houston the weekend before. I was in Chicago this past weekend, so it's
cold in Chicago.
You know, it was a little windy.
But
I had a little pullover on. You know, so it was nice.
Yeah, it was tough duty.
It was tough. Someone's got to do it.
You were staying at a Hampton Inn there, weren't you?
You know, we were, and then we went to Gibson's after the game. I actually ate a 14-ounce filet at like 10:30 at night. It was outstanding.
That sits well.
That sounds really good. Well,
I was hungry.
As of this recording, and this will give you a hint behind the scenes, but NFL draft is tonight.
Yes, it is. We're doing this on Thursday morning. Drafts tonight. We figured Caleb Williams was going 1, but after that, seems to be a lot of moving parts. It seems like Jaden Daniels is probably going to go 2, and after that, it's kind of who wants to trade up, who wants to trade down. So.
A lot of folks always rush to get the QBs. The Falcons could probably trade down if they wanted to, because I think somebody wants to take their spot to get
to number 8, because there should be one or two left at that point. But it's always fun, man, seeing it. You think about last year, all these great quarterbacks, and CJ Stroud's kind of the guy that's out of that group, at least, that had the best year.
Yeah, he was amazing.
Oh, he's unbelievable. So
you can't. It's not a science.
No, it's
really most of these guys. I mean,
to me, the biggest thing is, do you like the guy? Do you like the leadership? Do you like that? But you look at all 5 of those guys. I mean, they all are very talented. They have different things, and you just don't know what's going to take what's not. It's no different than running backs or receivers a lot of times.
Well, you think about CJ last year. I mean, there were a bunch of scouts coming out with negative things.
Absolutely.
Before the draft.
And all he did was line
dominated.
up. Yeah, exactly. So you just know. That's what I'm saying. You never know.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. I'll be at a high school baseball game instead of at the draft, or not at the draft, or watching the draft. But
y'all got playoffs?
First round of playoffs start, but my kid's on the shelf this week and with a hamstring injury. But hopefully they can pull it through.
Get him back next week.
Hopefully. I think he's been working hard, making a lot of progress. Tough timing of the injury, but he's had a really good year. So very thankful for that.
I have to have an injury episode coming up sometime soon. Injuries are tough.
Yeah, especially senior year.
Yep.
But
there's never a perfect time to get injury, but for a lot of kids and stuff, it's like that. It comes at a time where you're like, man.
Yeah. I told him he's got to be a good teammate. He's got to be a cheerleader. Got to be help. Tell him what he sees from the pitcher, and it's a tough place to be. But I think he'll be good at it.
Well, especially when it gets to elimination like that. Because if you're a good cheerleader, maybe you get back in the lineup next week.
I know.
You know what he needs to do? He needs to come to our live event and hear about Kirk Cousins' injury in high school. How's that for a segue?
Great segue.
Look at that! Wow,
I thought one more time.
He's a pro.
He's already teasing. I called Britt the other night to talk, and he was just diving in on Kirk Cousins live. I think I was Netflixing Outer Banks with my wife at that time. That's what I do at night after the kids went down.
Britt does the dirty work, man. He does.
He's in the trenches for us. But so a lot of good stuff coming up. And again, if you haven't done it yet, go to pureathleteinc.com, get tickets, because they will go fast. And I'm telling you, he's going to be a lot of fun talking about his journey. And again, a little bit about the Falcons and what brought him to Atlanta. Mm-hmm. So it should be great.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, why don't you kick us off with parenting on game day? I feel like you usually do a good job when it's the 3 of us.
Well, we just, we're looking at topics that we think really are relevant to our audience out there. And you think about game day, which, everybody has every week just about. Yeah. And game day can be the toughest time to parent for a whole lot of reasons, but it also can be the most fun time. And so we kind of wanted to cover both of those and talk a little bit. And as we thought about it, guys, we talked about, let's break it into 3 different buckets. And the first bucket is before the game, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on, both good and bad, before the game. And then we're going to talk about during the game, and that might be one that hits a bunch of people right between the eyes, including us.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about post game, because there's a bunch of stuff to talk about there. But I guess just to start, I'll throw it out to you guys first. Let's talk about before the game, and let's talk about some of the best parts about pregame. What comes to mind for you guys?
Well, I mean, you guys covered it last time. You talked about the hype music driving up to the game.
Yeah.
But,
you're going to bring that up again.
We'll get back to that in a second. I mean, I think it's
losing yourself. Lose yourself.
Losing it, I think.
Losing it.
No, but I mean, you can kind of even start back to the night before the game. I mean, like kind of what, going through, just making sure that your kids, depending on the age, but sometimes they're going to have to help them at a younger age, but when they get older, just making sure that they get a good night's sleep. Making sure that hey, look, you're a part of this team, no matter what age you are. You got a commitment to this team. We're not going to do a spend the night party until 1:00 in the morning. We got to get up early the next morning. So it kind of starts there. And then it's really just, we always like to have, and you guys talked to us a little bit, but a routine in the morning, like eat the same thing. If it's a shake, if it's eggs or whatever they feel like is the best thing that most comfortable doing before that game? Maybe Cocoa Pebbles could be that too.
I was just about to shake. My 10-year-old's definitely not pounding a shake.
Yeah, well, I mean, not all my kids are doing that, but you try to give them something healthy in the morning.
Yeah, my 10-year-old girl doing the TB12 method, man.
Yeah, we learned that from Tom's trainer, but. No, so what do you think?
No, I think depending how early the games are, pack your stuff the night before because there's nothing worse. Oh. And my daughter's actually said this before than when you're panicking in the morning to get everything in the car.
I can't find my other shoe.
Oh, it's that one sock that you're looking for that just kills you.
Yeah, if you got a 12 o'clock start, take your time. You can do it in the morning, but
pack it for the airport.
Exactly, man. It's a mess, and then it can bring anxiousness to them if you're late, depending what time you're going to be there and. So I think that make sure you're ready and I would say like anything, especially if it's like a travel tournament or, a club volleyball tournament, whatever it is, like kind of, I think prepare your kids for what they're going to see. If it's very stiff competition, just let them know, you're going to have some good games, some tough games today, not to tell your kids you're going to crush some other teams, but at least so they have an idea of what they're walking into, I think.
Yeah, I agree. You touched on breakfast, but really it depends on how old your kid is and what sport they're playing. But, I kind of learned the hard way, hydration and nutrition and what you eat and all that kind of stuff. If you don't start a couple of days before, starting the day of, if you're a soccer player or tennis or basketball or lacrosse or whatever, and you have problems with hydration and cramping, you've waited too late.
Especially now as it starts to tick up, man. That heat's it goes from very nice to very hot in about a month here. So, especially in Atlanta and a lot of other places too, I know.
I think a lot of it's just like as they get older, they get into a routine. And so you're just trying to help them, whether, like you said, like it's having everything laid out for them in the morning or the night before, but give them the same thing. Like if they feel comfortable having a sub sandwich, at a certain time of the day, just, you don't want to throw something, you don't want to throw a curveball at them. And so, just having a routine that they cannot worry about anything, but just really enjoying the game.
It's fun though. We joke about the music, but when all that's packed up and it's time to go to the game, you get in the car. I mean, it's a great time to talk to your kid. Yeah. And talk about what's important in the game, not just the X's and O's and all that, but about having fun, about being a great teammate, about sportsmanship, all those types of things, and listen to music, just enjoying it.
That's why I think the best part for me is just, between my son going to lacrosse right now, daughter softball, they got their little playlist they like to listen and they time it out perfect, and it's like 3 minutes from the park. Let me know, and it's fun though.
Inner Sandman.
Inner Sandman for my daughter. And, my son goes all over the place.
Yeah.
So, but that's fun for them. They get a kick out of that. And, I think it's trying to make things as normal as you can for them. And so they have fun. They're set up to go have fun.
Yep.
Doesn't mean they're going to play great. I mean, they're going to be perfect, but you set it up so they're going to have a great weekend playing whatever sport they're going to play.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the challenging parts of it, because for many parents that are listening, they're thinking right now, oh my gosh, before a game is so hard for us and our kid because my kid gets super anxious. He or she might get fearful depending on what sport they're playing. And it's a challenging thing to get them ready to step out onto the big stage and play.
Yeah, I've had, 3 lunches this week, and they weren't about this, but along with the conversation, everyone I had lunch with was a parent of a youth athlete, and every one of them talked about trying to figure out how to manage that stress or that the butterflies or anxiety, and it was just, and they just trying to I don't know where to go. I don't know. I've tried everything. I've tried talking to them, after the event where they're okay and they're happy, almost like filming that to say, it all worked out okay. Let's show it the next time we have one of these pregame jitters. But it seems to be a very common problem. Everybody thinks, it's just my kid who's doing this, and it's crazy. 3 conversations, all 3 in a little different situations, different sports. All 3 of them are struggling with their kids suffering from anxiety is it butterflies or is it something more than that? And then how do you deal with that? And so, and we all of us have probably dealt with that as parents and then have like a million different ways to try to deal with that.
But I I think that's where as parents we got to separate with our kids anxiety to butterflies, because it's good to have butterflies for sure. Game. I mean, I a lot of games I played it, there were you were excited doing that. So I think you can put that with anxious a little bit for the kids once they get out there. I think where it is if you're playing the whole game anxious, right?
Yeah.
Like now,
I don't want the ball to come to me.
Exactly. We got to figure something. You know, I used to say I was always anxious, but then once you get out in the field, you get going, you get relaxed, and you realize it's another game. So that's where I think you got to really pay attention. If your kid's stressing out about taking a shot or whatever, guarding somebody, then you might have to have some talks or figure out what's bringing that on,
or figure out how to overcome it. One of my sons, we played baseball for like 8 years, and before he was 10, he was either pitching or playing shortstop, but he was scared of the ball coming at him and hitting him. So we would either go to the park or find another place 30 minutes before we had to be there, and I'd hit ground balls to him and he'd get over the fear.
Yeah.
But if we didn't do that, he was going to step out on the field, with that fear.
Right. Or you can do what my dad did. He just hit me one time.
Like he just kept hitting
See, it doesn't hurt.
Oh, he did. Took me in the cage, and I was there, and he hit me right in the ribs. And
this wasn't throwing. This was a ground ball, taking a bad hop and popping you in the face.
One of the dads told me that his kid is a runner, and the kid would want the dad to get there before the race so they could just go for a walk together and just talk it out, and tell me what you're, what are you nervous about? A lot of times it was really like nothing specific. It was just general. So coming up with a routine that for your kid, that's also hopefully a great memory that your kid's going to have. Is like my dad or my mom was there for me, and we had this really cool routine that kind of calmed my nerves, got me fired up at the same time, gave me kind of at peace about things. And so I think that's a great idea.
That's good, because I remember high school football, man. Like there were so many big games we played where the butterflies, anxiety were there, but. I would do the same thing every day, before every game for 4 hours. So the one constant for me was, even though it was a big game, I knew exactly what I was going to do leading up to kickoff, and it made things easier. It relaxed you. You weren't worried about, do I need to be here? Do I need to be there? What? Like I knew everything. And I tell my daughter that. She's only 10, but I'm like, if you can start getting in a routine, I was like, to me, everything else kind of flows through the rest of the day. You know?
For sure. And I think for the parent that's sitting out there right now saying, that sounds nice, but I mean, we have major anxiety. And as you said, that's different.
Yep.
And we're gonna deal with that. That's more than we can cover today, but we're gonna bring in some experts here soon, and we're gonna do 1 or 2 part show on mental health and anxiety as it relates to sports, and dig really deep into that. We won't try to do that today.
No, that'll be good.
Jeff, just to put a bow on it though, for right now, Jeff made a good point. I think if it's something that goes away when the competition starts, then that's butterflies. It may be just a little bit of anxiousness, but if it's something that stays with them through the whole game, then that's something that's a little bit more serious.
Yep.
Now let's go to during the game.
Yeah.
This is the more interesting one to me.
Yeah. So you want to talk about the hard stuff or the best stuff?
Let's talk about the best stuff first.
Okay. What's the best stuff during the game? I mean, it's just fun.
Watching your kids.
Yeah. Fun.
Watching your kids compete. Watching them make a good play, score a goal, and then hug their friends. They all come around each other. I mean, that's what you enjoy seeing, right? Is your kid play on a team or by themselves, if they're doing tennis, golf, and see them excel at something, you're proud.
Yeah, it's a blast. There's nothing better than, on a beautiful spring day, sitting out in the stands in a comfortable chair with a cold drink and just watching your kid play sports. It really is. I mean, and if you take it with the right perspective, it's not the Super Bowl, they're not getting paid for this, and you're just sitting there, man, I just love this. It's a beautiful day and I get to watch my kid play sports. Same thing. I mean, in a gym even, it's so much fun. If they're having fun, to just watch them have fun and to watch them compete, to watch them work hard, to watch them, get coached, good and bad, to watch them hang out, like to cheer on their friends, to be cheered on by their friends. It's awesome. It's a great experience.
It's fun to be with the other families and the community that you have.
Because most of the time, those families are good friends of yours, or they become good friends.
Yeah. I'll tell you, as one who's done with all of that, and it's cliche, I know, but it goes fast. Yeah. And if you rob yourself of all the fun that you have at the ballpark or the gym or wherever it is because you're so stressed about, achieving X or Y or Z, you're going to regret it. Now, some of that stress is normal and we have to deal with that. We're going to talk about that a little bit too, but still, this is a blast. This is a super fun experience. And you got to seize that opportunity because it's over so fast.
We talked about, who was it that maybe one of you guys, I don't think y'all are smart enough to say this, it was probably one of our guests, but I think they was talking about going into the game, your kid's game, not having like an outcome based approach. Like, we're going to this game like to win the game, or I hope she goes 3 for 4 at the plate, or hope he scores this many goals or whatever. But going into the game, like you said, like, I'm going to enjoy this experience. We're so blessed that we're able to be out here. My kid's healthy, and that's one thing we always talked about when we would pray before going to games. It was like, just praying that, thankful to God that you're healthy enough. I would tell my sons, there's kids in hospitals right now.
Can't play.
And there's a kid in a hospital right now who's dying to be out here playing baseball.
Yep.
And so just understand how lucky you are and blessed you are to be able to have enough health to do that. But I think just as parents, what are we going into these games? What approach are we taking? And if it's the experience and that joy, then I think that's the right approach. If it's, my kid's got to produce, and that's where there's a lot of other things that affect that, whether it's the team they're on, if they're on a certain travel team, they feel like they got to prove themselves, and that makes it hard. And but yeah, it's it could be awesome.
I think we all agree it's great. I think flipping that, the hardest part is for parents to sit back and let events unfold and not feel like you are in control or anything like that. And I've always said this, if parents, if you have a good coach, if you got a coach you trust, just get out of the way. Let them bring the most out of your daughter, your son, and whatever they do, knowing that, that you're out there. And I think even if you have a coach that maybe you don't love, we've heard a lot of athletes saying this, like they wanted their kids to learn from that experience too. That not every coach you have is going to be awesome. You might not agree with every move they make.
So what I want to hear y'all, you both of you tell me and tell the audience, like what was your approach, Britt, when you're watching your boys play at sports and your daughters too? I know you're coaching a lot of your kids now, but when you're in the stands watching your kids or watching your kids now, how much would you talk? How much would you say anything? How much would you keep quiet?
Well, I'll say this. First of all, when you're coaching, it's a lot easier in one respect because you're engaged in the game and you get to say things and you get to provide input. When you're in the stands, it's a whole different deal. There are other coaches and you need to let their voice kind of carry the day. For me, I think it was there's the external and there's the internal. And from an external standpoint, most people would say, "Oh, he's got himself under control and he does a good job," and so on and so forth. Internally, I was churning, and the stress, and I would literally, spend a lot of time praying before games. It just let me control myself internally. Let me enjoy it.
Just, I don't want to interrupt you, but did that change when it got more serious?
It got worse when it got serious.
But even when they were playing like baseball and basketball, you were still struggling with that too?
No, not near as much, but I also was coaching, when they were younger and doing all that. So I had an outlet. Yeah. But no, it's the things where the stakes, you feel like the stakes are high. Mm-hmm. And that's where, we're doing all this stuff and they've got to perform and they know that you're feeling that way, even if nobody else knows you're feeling that way. And you can control yourself great externally, but they see little bitty body language things. It used to drive me crazy. I would feel like I was perfect for a 2-hour tennis match and my son would come off the court. "I saw you frown at this." It was like, what? How about the other?
I was so good.
I was so good.
Clap for you.
Right.
I think too, when all the dust settles on that is what you talked about. I have no issue with parents on my teams as I'm coaching yelling at their kid if they're not hustling.
Yeah.
I really don't, because it takes it off of me as a parent to get on them. Everything else, like, just wait till after the game. You know what I'm saying? Unless unless you see something that is like completely, like say if it's softball and your daughter has a stance, right? And she's younger and she's just completely out of whack with it. Like between innings, I have no problem with a parent coming over, just, whispering maybe their daughter or something. I really don't.
Yeah.
Mine is when you're doing it in the middle of the at-bat, middle of the thing. Like
keep your head in.
Your kid's already got a tough enough time getting ready, middle of a tennis match and you're screaming at them. It's tough. I mean, it's tough to, process that and figure it out. So I that's my big thing. You want to yell at effort and stuff, I got no issue with that. But everything else, just sit back and let them play.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Jeff. And I think a lot of parents don't know. And so I think we do need to say, and baseball is a great example, but at every sport this happens where they're going up to bat and the parent thinks, I'm going to give them a couple of reminders of little things that they're hearing from their coach in their batting lesson. Yep. And they're doing it as the kid's in the box. Not good. You think you're helping, but you're hurting.
No. You the Matheny Manifesto, I always mispronounce it, but the great book on this, he said even like, he's using baseball as an example, even saying like, come on, you can do it, come on, they already understand that.
Yeah.
If you're not just positively saying, hey, great job, but he said, there's really nothing you can say as a parent from the stands that's really going to help your kid.
Yeah.
And I mean, it drives me crazy. You're more patient than I am, but I mean, and I'll use baseball more cause that's where I'm at mostly, but you're not the coach. You're not the coach. You're not getting paid to be the coach. You're there to be a parent. You're only going to hurt your kid. Even if your kid's not hustling, even if your kid has bad body language, it's not the time to say it during the game. You can talk to them after the game about it, but it drives me crazy of parents coaching their kids. I mean, at all levels during the games. Now, and it's crazy. Certain sports, it seems to be more acceptable. But even then, I don't think these kids need to hear, come on, you can do it. It's more, if you want to give them positive reinforcement, if you want to say, great job, way to hustle, that's great. But any kind of instruction from the sidelines I don't think is good. And I don't think it's positive. I think your kid doesn't want to hear it. And my kid made it very clear to me, both my boys made it very clear to me, Dad, I don't want to hear your voice from the stands. Like, I want you to be cool and chill. And I made it was really hard. And but the last 3 years, I mean, I rarely say anything.
Yeah. But that's exactly the last. So I think as you get older, there should be less and less parent to kid during the game. When you're 7, 8, 9, I don't, like I said, getting on your, hey, make sure you run that out or something. I don't mind that.
It's up to you. It's up to the coach.
Well, I'm just saying, I think a lot of times kids are more apt at that age still to listen to their parents than a coach.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're 12, 13, 14, you start to understand what the coach is to that player.
Yeah.
And so, as I said, as they get older, I think then it's even more important for the parents to back off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still don't like, at 10U travel softball, I don't like the parents yelling at their kids what to do hitting.
Yeah.
But like I said, hustling, anything else, but I think as you get older, you got to let your kids figure it out, man, too. Like that's where you talk about like the enjoying and sitting back. It's sometimes maybe watching your kid go through a tough time, go through where they, they're having trouble scoring a basket or playing good defense. And all of a sudden they do. And it's that satisfaction that I figured it out, and I figured it out without the parents' help. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's big time.
Yeah. It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
As they get older. I for my kids, as they got older, the only thing I would say, and of course we were in tennis and you can't say anything, it's not allowed. But I would say things about behavior if they were acting out.
Yep.
And you can't say much, but I could just say, stop.
Nip it.
Yeah.
I mean,
and they knew what I was talking about. And it would have to be, fairly severe. But again, man, it churns on the inside.
Yeah.
And I go to games, my wife, when she go to matches with me, she wasn't near as emotionally invested in their tennis as I was. And so, I mean, it was easy for her. And it's kind of like now, like Brad, if I go to a baseball game with you to watch your son Brady play, I can just enjoy the game.
Yeah.
And I can still see everything that I saw if it was my son, and I can just enjoy the game. But when it's your son or your daughter, there's a different feeling inside if you're really emotionally invested in
There's
it.
an unspoken rule in the stands is like, you never come up to some parent when their kid's at the plate.
Start talking to them.
Yeah, look, I saw you the other day.
That's why my dad sat down the right
Yeah,
field.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it
He didn't
drives
want
you
to talk to
crazy. He's like,
anybody.
and you're trying to be nice. You're like, yeah, my kid's batting right now. We can talk about it just a fight. But yeah, it is. I still think though. I think that if it's effort, if it's body language. If you feel like you feel the need to kind of say something to him during the game, but I just don't think it. I don't think it helps the kids at any level.
So you don't think you should even cheer for them?
I think you could. Yeah, I think you can say great job. I think if way to hustle, that kind of thing. But technical stuff in any sport, I think from the family. I mean, that's you can if you want to take them out to the basketball court, on your own, and y'all want to work on form and stuff like that. But I'm telling you, this is just because I've been around it for so much. You're not yelling at your kid to keep your elbow in on their jump shot during the game. It's just. It is really. Y'all can tell it's a sore spot for me because it's just so prevalent in certain sport. Well, but it's crazy, it is. I don't understand. I just don't think it helps the kids' performance. I don't think it helps the kids' experience, and that's what the coaches are for. And if you want to be a coach, then you volunteer to be a coach next year, and you can do that to all the kids. But I think it's just, it drives me crazy.
The other thing I would say is if you're a parent who sits in the stands and you're a cheerleader in the stands, then I think that's fine. Just cheer for everybody.
Exactly.
Don't just cheer for your own
that.
kid. Yeah. Don't be that person.
Absolutely. Nobody likes that person. That's like the happy hit guy we talked about. Nah.
Happy hit guy.
Happy hit guy. The guy's team loses, but you got 3 hits. Oh man,
It was a great game.
That's what I'm saying. Right? We tried, guys, and you're all excited on the inside. Like,
Don't
be those parents.
Yeah,
there are a
that's
lot
good.
of great
I like
parents
that.
out there that do cheer for all the kids.
For sure.
Absolutely. And you'll know that. And on a healthy team, that happens more and more, which is what you want.
And that rubs off on your kid too when they hear that from the stands.
So now let's say game's done, tournament's done, match is done, and you're headed home.
The car ride
ride home. Which
There's a chapter of a book that I've read recently that talks about that.
Yeah, I only got halfway through it.
Every time we talk
only
about
like
it, you got a
100
little
pages.
bit less of it read.
I've read it cover to cover, Britt.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've
Thank you.
skipped a few pages. But
Is it on Audible yet? Maybe you can read it
no,
to you.
I think we can get to it right away. The hardest part of the car at home is right away you want to tell your kid what they did wrong.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
I mean, that's every single one of us to a T.
Especially if they lost or they didn't have a good game.
Absolutely.
personally.
You want to point it out.
Yeah.
You can't do this. You can't do that. And
Well, and many of us couch it in like, man, you played a great game today. Everything was great.
What about
that third at bat?
Yeah,
Or,
exactly.
I'm
I'm going to need you to do this. It's the whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your
So-
kid is going, oh my
Yep.
gosh.
And now again, I think there's different ways to that. If your kid broaches a subject and wants to talk about it on the way home,
Sure.
I remember our third tournament this year, and I've learned it with the car ride home. We put on music, we give food, we do whatever. But like 5 minutes in, Emma Kate looked at me and she was like, "Man, Dad, I was horrible tonight." And she was kind of ready to digest it and talk about it. So I didn't yell at her, I didn't go off, but I just kind of said, "This is what I saw."
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was easy. But again, let your kid take you there.
For sure.
You know, if they get in the car and they just want to listen to music, let them listen to music.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean you never talk about it. I mean, you certainly, if you see things in them that you want to point out, just wait.
Yeah, and that's what we're saying. That's the best part is you fix that later on.
Yeah.
Whether it's that night before you go to bed, next morning at the breakfast table. Hey, let's talk through a couple of those things that happened in the game and just kind of tell me what you were thinking.
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect time to do that. Emotions out of it. Your kid, especially after a good night's sleep or sleep after playing a long day doing whatever, they're in a better frame of mind to talk than they are 20 minutes after the game.
So what do you do when your kid had a rough game, rough parts of the game? You get in the car and they're fine. They just shut it off and they're on to the next. They're on to something thinking that's something.
You don't like that.
Well, no, like
No,
do you sit there and go, All right, they seem to be okay with this. Now it could be like if it's an effort thing or a body language thing, that's more of a heart thing. But if it's like a skill thing,
I think it's also how old are they?
Yeah.
I've seen the last 2 years now, Emma Kate, when she gets in the car, it definitely means more because she's more frustrated if she doesn't play well. Where it's 2 years ago, good or bad, she didn't care.
Yeah.
And I think you become an age where you really realize that. Like you said, now, if your kid's 14 and they just played the worst game ever and they get in the car and it's totally okay.
Yeah.
Might tell you something about your kid, might not
For
care
sure.
about the sport. And it's not the word. I mean, it's not like the end all be all, but then you can kind of say, okay, well, they're not necessarily into it or it bothers them. So at least they're giving you a hint that maybe they're not passionate about this.
So Britt, one of your sons, this is hypothetical, or maybe it did happen, had a rough match. It's different parts of the match. It was rough. He gets in the car. You guys are driving home. Are you quiet? Are you trying to just bring it up in a nice way up front to kind of get it out of the way? Are you waiting for him to give you a cue, or
I'm typically saying, man, tough match, but it's okay. And if he wants to dig deeper into that, then we can dig deeper. But it's not, unless, as y'all have already talked about, unless there was a behavior or an attitude type of issue. If there was an attitude issue, we were talking about it. And we were talking about it in the car, and it wasn't a fun ride home. But outside of that, and look, I screwed this up plenty of times.
That's why you wrote a book.
That's right. So boys, if you're listening, don't call me and say, what the heck? I screwed it up plenty, but as I grew and learned, I think, it became smarter to try to wait on those things. And sometimes it was quiet. Because sometimes, and
that's okay. You're tired. Sometimes your kid just doesn't want to talk. Let's be honest. I mean, we go through that, right? You get in the car, you just want to be quiet. And I don't think it's bad. And like you said, it gives them time to cool off.
Yeah.
And gives them time to process it too, right? Like try to figure out. I always told you, like me and Katie never rode to the field together because after the game, even if she'd come, and want to wait, I'd tell her to go because I needed that time after the game to process what went on. I would call my dad. We'd talk about the good and the bad. And then it was like, okay, now I'm home and I'm in a much better place.
Yeah.
It happened. It's done with. And I think it's great too, because in those moments, I think it's okay to let your kid know, like, it was a tough day, sweetie. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
And that's where I think where the conversation either later that night, the next day comes in like, all right, we might need to put a little extra work in this week.
Right.
Yeah.
You're struggling with this. And if they are willing to do that, then I think you're in a healthy, great spot to go. But your kids need to know that it's okay to not play well. It's going to happen. It's not you. They're not going to leave every match, every game feeling great about themselves.
Yeah, it's I've tried all the above. I've tried all the above, and I think what Britt said and what you said is right. I mean, I've tried to, probably talk too much about it, too soon. It didn't go well. I've tried to, hey, I'm not going to say anything at all. And, you've got an hour-long car ride that they can see your body language too. They can see you're bothered by it or whatever. My kid one time,
silent treatment.
Well, my kid one time had a chemo as a freshman too. And this is what I look back when I was such an idiot, but as a freshman had a three pitch strikeout in a key moment where they brought him in as a pinch hitter. And it was like an hour long of just quiet. And he could tell that I was ticked, but then I look back and he had 2 great games before that. And like, what in the world were you thinking? Think big picture. But so that didn't work. I do think though it's kind of like you can bring it up early in the car ride, but like you said, as a parent, you should have a perspective of like, this isn't the end of the world.
Bigger perspective.
Yeah. And I'm so proud of how you played really hard. I'm so proud of your effort. You were a great teammate or whatever it is. And then if they want to talk with you, they'll talk about it. And if they don't, then they at least know that how you feel in a good way.
And I think know your kid, right?
Yeah.
All kids are different. Yeah. I mean, there's, every kid's going to react different after a loss, and it's like we talk about like at a funeral or mourning, everybody mourns different. And so I think everybody process. So know your kid and how they do it. Some kids might want to get in the car. God, why did this happen? They might want to talk about it right away. Then engage and go for it.
Yeah, sure.
But if you see your kid pushing back hard right off the bat, back off and give them some room.
Yeah. But I think along those lines to think about ahead of time, and you don't have to think about this every time, but what's the goal? I mean, what's the goal when our kids finish a game? At some point it's to break down the game. That's a sub goal. To help them get better. But the primary goal is to let them know that hey, you're not defined by your performance in sports any more than you're defined. I love you and care about you, whether you're 0 for 4 or, 0 for 8 shooting or whatever, just as much. And so I think we just have to keep those goals in mind. And the other thing I think is important is we talk about, and we have athletes talk all the time about failure is a great thing, and we need to teach our kids that it's okay to fail.
Yeah.
Failure, I mean, we just had Paul Rabel on, and he talked all about how many shots Michael Jordan missed and how many games Bill Belichick lost. And all those times, the high achievers lose and fail a lot and become resilient because of it. And so, I mean, in the way that we do that, we need to teach our kids that it's okay to fail. Yeah. It's how you respond.
I agree. We have a pitcher on our softball team. Her dad's from Mississippi, just great dude. And last year, his daughter got hit hard in the championship game, so I had to take her out. We were down like 8-1. She came in the dugout and she was, crying. Mm-hmm. So I sat down next to her and just, hey, it's okay. She had a great tournament before. I said, you got hit, and her dad comes around the corner, behind the thing, hands her like a towel or something. He's like, well, sweetie, as I tell you, sometimes you're the windshield and sometimes you're the bug. And today you're the bug. And dude, so I use that all the time now because I love it. It's like she actually kind of smiled and laughed. And I think was she disappointed? Yes. But I think that little thing from her dad kind of put things in perspective and at least like, hey, you know what? It's not the end of the world. But I just thought that was great because it's like, it's so true. It's not the end of the world. To kids, it feels like it. But you have to, as a parent, put it in perspective that the sun will come up tomorrow and you'll be back at it.
It's hard. I mean, these conversations I had this week, one was a middle school parent and the other two are elementary school parents and young elementary school parents. And it was weighing heavily on them. And, what I have as someone who's older is you just have that life experience to realize, look, it's going to be fine. Yeah. What happens at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it's going to be fine. But when you're in the middle of it, in fairness to our audience who's listening, and especially your first go round, it is just, it impacts you as a parent because you want your kid to be happy. You want your kid to have success or whatever that, how you define that. And you have to try to, even if it's the first time, to try to pray for perspective, to realize that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Yep. And whatever struggle they're going through, and so many of our athletes have talked about it, you've got to be a parent first and a coach and even a cheerleader second. And but the folks who are listening to this are probably the parents who are pretty engaged. I'm guessing the folks who are listening, but even a lot of our athletes talked about their parents being parents that really could care less if they had a great game or not. And sometimes that was awesome, not having that pressure at home. But the folks listening to this, I think, are pretty engaged. And so my encouragement is just realize that it's a long haul. It's not something that's going to really impact them right now. If they have a bad game or several bad games or whatever.
And that's okay. Like, I talk about it. My parents were very engaged, man. I mean, my dad expected me to go out there and play well and give my best. Now, again, I think as long as the effort was there and what you talked about, we'd break down or go to the cage the next day, talk about what we needed to change, what we needed to do. And like you said, as long as the effort was there, my dad never had an issue, And so I think that's the thing. It's great. Be engaged, be there, support your kids. But again, try to keep it in perspective. Yeah. I think that's the big thing.
Yep. It's good stuff.
Well, we hope you enjoyed it. Obviously, there's a lot of great things about watching your kids play. And, hopefully you have more great memories.
It's the best
with them than the other way. And if it is a bad game, like I said, you know what? Turn it into a great memory. Make it a learning experience. Work at it to get better. And then that way you can laugh down the road and say, remember that day that,
that day you were the bug?
Yeah, exactly. Because it doesn't define you.
Yep.
Yeah. And so I think that's great.
Yeah. So do it this weekend.
Yeah. Yep. Why not? Try it out. See if it can't hurt. So hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week. Hey guys, Jeff Francoeur here. Thanks for checking out Pure Athlete, and subscribe to our channel on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you go to listen to our podcast.